Hey, it's Mr. Shrum, and I am back with the second part of the cells unit, unit 3, part 1 of the cells. We were talking about how they are the basic units of living things, prokaryotes, eukaryotes, all that good stuff. And now we're going to look at how they are actually structured. Organs such as the heart and lungs carry out special life functions in the body, like in our human bodies. Similarly, cells have structures called organelles that perform specific tasks for the cell. We have organs in our body, cells have organelles that help them function in kind of the same way. Prokaryotic cells lack most organelles. Remember, the prokaryotes were the oldest form of cells. So they're very basic. And then the eukaryotic cells developed later. They have a nucleus and all the other organelles that we are about to learn about. They're more complex, more developed. Many organelles are common to both plants and animal cells, but there are some organelles that are specific to either a plant or an animal. And after this lesson, you're going to be able to know which is which. So let's compare these cell structures. Let's compare prokaryotic and eukaryotic and learn about the different structures that make up the cells. So right here, cytoplasm. A cell is about 70% water, like the human body has mostly water in it. And much of this water exists in the cytoplasm. This light green area throughout the cell is cytoplasm. It's mostly water and salt, and it suspends the organelles within the cell. It also allows substances to pass inside and outside the cells. And it's present in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And if you click on the word, it just tells you a mixture of water and salt that suspends the organelles. So the organelles are just kind of floating around in the cell in this cytoplasm. Cytoskeleton. A cytoskeleton is a support network of protein fibers. And these little fibers form a framework for the cell. The finest, as in the smallest fibers, are the microfilaments. Micro meaning small, small filaments. Microtubules are slightly bigger and act as a scaffold. Scaffolding as in it gives it structure, giving shape to the cell. The cytoskeleton is present in all eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic, but not the prokaryotic cells. Nucleus. The nucleus is the command center of the cell, and it's the largest organelle. It contains the genetic information, known as DNA, for the cell, and that enables the cell to carry out all of its other functions. A nucleus is present in all eukaryotic cells. So if you compare these three structures, prokaryotes and eukaryotes have cytoplasm, but only eukaryotes have cytoskeletons and nucleus. Cell wall. The cell wall is made of a tough substance known as cellulose. The cellulose provides structure and strength to the cell. Cell walls are found in plant cells and in some prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, but not in the eukaryotes like these cells in our body, unless bacteria is, found in your body. But that's a little different. Vacuoles are storage centers. So think of vacuous as space. There's a big space in these, and they store nutrients for the cell. And they can even store waste products to protect the cell from contamination. So they can take out waste or harmful stuff and then store it in these centers so it doesn't hurt the rest of the cell. And they play a very big role in the plant structure. And when water is abundant, the vacuoles of plant cells grow, allowing the plant to stand tall and look healthy. If you have plants, this is what makes them appear like healthy green plants. When water is scarce, the vacuoles shrink and the plant wilts. These vacuoles are present in all eukaryotic cells. However, they tend to be significantly larger in plant cells than in animal cells. So these guys are in eukaryotes, but bigger in the plant eukaryotes. Ribosomes are a little useful organelles that synthesize proteins. Synthesize means they take a bunch of things, mix them together to create something. So proteins for the cell, these organelles are found in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So anytime you run across this word, that means it mixes things together to create something useful. Synthesize. Endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short, appears in the cytoplasm as a network of tubules. There are two types of ER. We have rough endoplasmic reticulum, and those contain ribosomes. And this rough endoplasmic reticulum is where the cell produces proteins. So think of R for rough, ribosomes, R as in rough, and R as in ribosomes. Rough has ribosomes, while smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have ribosomes attached. It produces lipids, which are fats and cholesterol for the cell. And ER, or endoplasmic reticulum, is found in eukaryotic cells. So here you can get a visual. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum with all the little ribosomes creating proteins. And then over here we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And those do not have ribosomes, and that creates lipids, or otherwise known as fats and cholesterol for the cell. So both parts, very important for cell function. Then we have a Golgi apparatus. That's a fun organelle. And they're usually located right by the endoplasmic reticulum. If you look here, bam. And these guys receive proteins and lipids from the endoplasmic reticulum. And they package, sort, and place in vesicles. And vesicles meaning small carrier. So in my mind, if I hear like vehicle, you can put stuff in vehicles and then carry them elsewhere. That's how my mind visualizes this word. The Golgi apparatus is like the post office, packaging, sorting substances, and then you deliver them. The nucleus serves as the command center, telling the Golgi apparatus where to send the substances. The vesicles are the mail trucks, which send substances to their destination, either to a different part of the cell or outside of the cell. The Golgi apparatus is found in eukaryotic cells. Several cell organelles are found in animal cells. These organelles may also exist in some single-celled organisms called protists, which look and behave like animals. So we'll explain. Lysosomes are the digestion organelles of the cell. These guys break down big molecules into smaller molecules that the cell can use or excrete. They are found in animal cells and rarely in plants, because plants, they don't need to necessarily digest anything like that, like animals do. Centrioles are a pair of cylindrical tubular organelles, and centrioles play an important role when cells are dividing. They are found in animal cells, single-celled protists, and a few lower-level plants. Ooh, sorry about that. And then we have cilia and flagella. Cilia and flagella are hair-like structures that extend from the surface of the cell. So you can see the little tiny hairs here. And cilia are usually shorter and more numerous than flagella. Both of these organelles are responsible for movement. These allow the cells to move. They're found in some eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. So cilia are the tiny ones, and then flagella is this very long strand, at least compared to the cilia. All right. Next, we have plasma membrane. All cells, both eukaryotes, prokaryotes, contain a plasma membrane or cell membrane. It's a flexible boundary that exists outside the cell. Structure: the plasma membrane is a bilayer, 2 layers, that means 2 layers, of phospholipids. Each phospholipid structure consists of 3 parts: a phosphate group, which is that part of the word, phosphate, 2 fatty acid chains, that's from the lipid part of the word, and then there's a glycerol backbone. And this picture shows you how they all fit together. The phosphate group forms the head. So right here, you see the head of the phosphate is the blue parts right there. And it is polar or hydrophilic, and they are attracted to water. The 2 heads are attracted to water, whereas the fatty acid tails, these gray tails, are hydrophobic. So philic, that is Greek from philia, which is some type of attraction, love. That means phosphates are attracted to water. Phobia, think of phobia, phobic. The 2 fatty acids do not want to be around water. So we have the heads attracted and the tails repelled from water. And within the membrane, those 2 phospholipid layers lie tail to tail. So the heads are facing away from the other heads, and the tails are touching. Cholesterol helps prevent the phospholipid tails from sticking together. Plasma membrane structure. Plasma membranes have transport proteins that let substances move in and out of the cell. Carbohydrate chains attached to the protein help define the cell's structures and read chemical signals from the environment. The structure of the plasma membrane is fluid. It's like a sea in which other substances, such as cholesterol and proteins, appear to float. The plasma membrane structure is therefore known as the fluid mosaic model. And what's its function? The plasma membrane, protects the organelles within the cell from outside elements that could damage them. It's like almost like a bodyguard or a bouncer in a club. Like only certain things can get in. If there's anybody causing any trouble for the cell, it will not let them through. Yeah, at least on purpose, not on purpose. The membrane is selectively permeable. Permeable means things can pass through, and selectively means it selects what comes in and out of the cell. It prevents the harmful, toxic substances from entering the cell. It allows food, water, and other substances to pass into the cell. And it also helps waste leave the cell. Another major function is to maintain homeostasis. So this membrane does a lot of things for the cell. It doesn't let certain things in, while it lets good things in, and it maintains this stability known as homeostasis. And this is a good picture describing the proteins, the glycolipids, the carb chains, a pore. I'm sure you are familiar with a pore, kind of like the pores in your skin. Well, the cells have pores that allow things to come in and out as well. So we have a question. Cells transport molecules into the cell in many different ways. One method is through endocytosis. In endocytosis, the cell brings specific molecules it needs, including fluid, into the cell. Why does the structure of the plasma membrane make this type of transport necessary for fluids? So we have fluid here, and you see it being kind of like circled around, and then only then allowed to pass through. So why is that? Well, a sample answer: while the heads of the phospholipid structures attract water, the tails are hydrophobic. So that means while the heads are attracted to fluid or the water, if it gets through that middle part of the lipid layer, the phospholipid layer, those lipids repel the fluid. So the fluid wouldn't be able to get all the way through. This is the only way you can get past the barrier. So the hydrophilic sections fold around the fluid to bring them into the cell so they don't need to pass through the tails, the hydrophobic tails. There's an inherited syndrome in humans in which the cells cannot convert food into energy. Some of the symptoms include muscle weakness and a lack of coordination. Which malfunctioning organelle within the cell can cause this condition? And you already saw the answer, but it's mitochondria. Mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. I guess it's kind of a meme at this point, but These guys break down food into energy and give the cell the power it needs to function. Muscle weakness results because the malfunctioning mitochondria are unable to provide the cell with energy. So it's like when the electricity goes out in a city. You know, they don't have any energy. Everything kind of gets put on hold for a second. If you've ever lost power before, you can't do as much stuff. So it's kind of like that. Muscles get weak because there's no power. And we have a little science in the news section. The Zika virus, or Zika virus. Yeah, I think we have time to get through this little portion. So I guess they didn't want to talk about the coronavirus anymore because it's been a little talked about every day for a while now. But if you remember the Zika virus, we'll talk about that instead. Viruses are microscopic organisms that are made up of organic chemicals. They share a lot of the characteristics of life, as in they carry genetic information, but they don't meet all of the characteristics of life that we discussed last time. Although viruses are extremely small, simple, and primitive, they have a great influence on human life. And for example, this year and last year, and back in 2016 as well, the Zika virus spread in multiple countries, including ours, the United States. And man, looking at a very real news website there, the viruses are not considered living, but they do have these characteristics of life: genetic information, they reproduce, they have internal organization, and they're adaptable. But what makes them not considered to be alive, they do not themselves have cells. They can reproduce only inside the cell of another organism. They need something else to reproduce, or they need to be inside something else to reproduce. So they cannot do that on their own. Their genetic information is in the form of DNA or RNA, but not both. Living things can have both DNA and RNA. With them, it's either one or the other. And once assembled in a host cell, they do not change their size or composition. So they infiltrate a host cell, but they don't change their size or composition. They just are the way they are throughout their cycle. They do not possess any structures or internal organization to perform biological processes. They do not use energy or release waste. They're very like a mechanical organism, or mechanical medical phenomenon. Let's put it that way. But this is an activity, and they created a Zika virus website, and it tells you to read the 4 main sections: overview, what you need to know, questions about Zika and what the CDC is doing, and then answer the questions in part A, part B, part C, and part D. So I'll check this out for a few seconds, and then I will have to leave this meeting. But yeah, here we go. So the CDC, our Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, created this Zika virus layout website, both in English and Spanish, what we know about Zika, the overview. What you need to know, questions about Zika. And then once you're done with that, answer those questions if you can, and let me know if you have any issues. Otherwise, that is the summary and the end of the cells, the basic units of life section. So I hope you are more familiar with cells, how living things are structured, how the cells allow us to do things, and viruses, how they are similar to living things, but they are not alive. They're like a mechanical organism that needs to use something else for it to survive. It needs to exploit you or me or other types of organisms for them to survive and reproduce. And yeah, if you're interested, keep looking into this stuff. A lot of science, biology, medicine. You will be studying this a lot if you're interested in any of that as a career or job. So yeah. All right, that's it for today. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.